I do really appreciate you coming and talking on the podcast. It's been cool for me to hear like my friends' stories, and you never know what
I
it's
had
going to
no
be.
idea I was going to be doing this as a career. So,
Really?
yeah. When I was a kid, I used to, kind of build stuff like, I guess, Legos or whatever. I was into building, and my dad was an engineer.
Okay.
But I was always into just drawing and stuff and some painting. So I wanted to go to school to, I guess, be an artist. I don't know what that even really means, but
Yeah, what did you want to do? What was your goal in going there?
I really don't know. I don't think my parents really wanted me to go that route. They wanted me to probably have more of a career type thing,
Sure.
because it's up in the air, but maybe like being a professor at some point and teaching.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I went and looked at these schools in Florida. I had to stay in Florida because my parents had done the prepaid college fund. It was a really good program because I think they paid the rates for whatever it was 15 years before I went to school.
So you were living in, did you grow up in Florida?
I grew up in Florida, in Bradenton, Florida. So I went to different schools just to look at them. And I got into Ringling School of Art and Design. The path is like you become an animator basically for Disney. And I got in, but I kind of knew that I wasn't going to be able to go there. But I just wanted to see if I could get in.
Yeah.
So I did. I ended up settling at University of West Florida in Pensacola, Florida. Is where I ended up going to school. And that was just because I went there and their art program was different from all the rest of them. Like you could just tell, like, and the artwork was different. It wasn't like just standard like people drawing whatever. The table here with like standard still lifes. So my exit, so that you have a show at the end that's called the exit show, and me and two of my friends decided to work together, and so we made an installation, which I don't know, you know what that is? So it's like I almost compare it, it's like a artwork that you can walk into. It's not like a sculpture that's like an object that's there. It's like this whole environment that you create. So we made this like a wall basically that was in the shape of half a circle in this gallery, and then in the middle we had this box that had lights and like a collage that you could see through all of it, and then there was an armature on a motor that was attached to the ceiling, and it would spin around, so you could never approach you always had to keep backing away to look in the box with all the images and stuff, and so would go around. It kind of forced you to get yourself out of there and have to put yourself back in.
Yeah, that's really cool.
So after college, I applied to go to school. I wanted to get a master's degree because that's how you get to be a professor is, you got to get a master's degree. So I applied for some schools, and I was going to go to Arizona State University, and there was a student there that didn't graduate. So there wasn't going to be a place, I wasn't going to have my own studio. I decided not to go to school, and so my wife and my girlfriend at the time, Jessica, and I decided to move out to Seattle because we had some friends that lived out there. And then I got a job as a barista because that's what you do in Seattle. And the owner's wife was a photographer, and she, I don't know if she had seen my artwork or I'd showed her, or told her I was an artist or something, but she was doing this photo shoot for Nordstrom, and she needed a set built. And I said, well, yeah, I could build a set for that. And then I was working one day, and this lady came in to get coffee, and she said that she was doing a photo shoot down the road. And I said, well, I've built some sets. If you ever need stuff built and I'm an artist, I could do something, build you whatever.
Yeah, like a set or display.
A set, yeah. And she said that they were doing a car shoot, I guess like for an automobile or whatever. They were doing that down the road, and she didn't usually do that, but she's like, I know somebody that does, and I'll pass your name along to them. And so I didn't hear anything for like, I don't know, maybe 3 months. I don't remember. You know,
That's
and
kinda
then
a
I
long
just
time.
got a call from this guy, Brad Mace, and he needed a Easter Island statue built for a trade show over in Spain. And so it was an 8-foot tall Easter Island statue that I carved out of foam, and
Wow.
it got sent to Spain. And then so he would build like sets for stuff around the area, like so for trade shows, PBS. We built Bill Nye the Science Guy, the Sonicare commercial, OxyClean. We did this thing called the strong arm. It's to prevent somebody coming into your house. So it's basically like the chair that you put behind the
I think I
doorknob.
kind of remember that. But go on.
So it's like the chair that you put behind the doorknob. So it's this bar that you would put in. They would go from your doorknob to
Yes.
the floor. That was supposed to stop people from coming in. So we had this a linebacker from Seattle, from the Seattle Seahawks, and he was going to be the guy that was going to do it. And so we had this partial wall set up with the door in it, door frame, and we had the thing set up back behind there. And we're like, yeah, just kind of run at the door, and we'll film it. And he runs at the door and he breaks this strong arm in half and just plows
Wow.
right through. And so they were like, well, okay, so maybe you have to kind of act and just kind of act like you can't get through the door. And so I think that we even like put some wood on the back of the door to keep it where it wouldn't open when he was trying to like get into it.
You have to strong arm the strong arm.
We had to strong arm the strong arm. But it was never... Like, I always had to have another job with it because the jobs were, kind of how this industry is.
So you had to work, obviously, while you did.
I did, yeah. And he had this guy that was doing, like, metal work for him. And so he went and started his own company doing, like, high-end metal stuff for clients, so, like, staircases or...
Oh, okay.
At the time, like steel was really big in the design industry. At least in Seattle, it was. So we would make like tiles out of steel plate and then blacken them. And you could do it out there because the humidity isn't like it is in New Orleans. Like where here it would just like rust and.
That's true.
So you would make like a countertop of like steel.
Oh yeah.
But we built this like for. The drummer of Pearl Jam out at his house. He wanted a floating planter basket. So he lives like right on the lake. I can't remember the name of the lake. But anyway. So he wanted it floating in the water and he was going to put plants on it. And so it was all out of steel, and then I think it was foam that was on the bottom that would allow it to float. And so we had these rods that we put in anchored to the dock that was there, but it would allow the planter to raise and lower with the tides. And so, yeah. So, I don't know. I had these paintings on steel that I did that would, the whole idea with it was like the steel would over time eventually just rust out. I became more interested too in like, I don't know, I made a screen out of sugar. So like I would take sugar and compress it like you would the what are they called, the Day of the Dead sugar skulls. Have you seen those? So it's the same process where you just add a little bit of water to it and you let it sit over time and it hardens and it becomes this, you can pick it up or whatever. So I'd make a screen that was like 2.5 by 4 feet, and I had some nozzles up above it that would make it just fall apart, and so it would drip down and slowly break it down. And I had a projection that was on that screen, called it like a sugar screen, and it would just go away and then it would reveal something else like in the background.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
But you can't sell it. You can't make money off of it. I had like some smaller versions I made, but then I made that for when I got my MFA for my final piece that I made. I really liked Robert Rauschenberg when I was in college and kind of, like studying, because he did like so much stuff. it's just, it always amazed me, like, how much he could just, like, produce.
Like similar to what you were doing? What does he
No,
do?
so Robert, I mean, yes and no. Robert Rauschenberg, he did some experimental things with like technology and kind of performance. He started off like making what he called assemblages. So it was, he was living in New York at the time, and he would go out and just find junk on the ground, and he would put them together into these sculpture / painting type things. And there was like a piece where he had like a mattress in it.
Wow.
Or he had like this stuffed rooster was one of them. And he had that in there. There was one where he had a tire with eagle in it, like a stuffed eagle that he found somewhere.
I'm going to have to look him up.
Well, do you know Turner? I can't remember his first name. William Turner, I think.
Yeah.
So he did like the
him.
paintings, of like the skyscapes, I guess you would call them. So I always liked his work because I felt like it's bordering on abstraction before there really was abstraction,
That's cool.
It's almost like Mark Rothko is. Okay, so
yeah.
I always thought like he was like Mark Rothko in a way.
Well, you gave me a more appreciation for modern art because I have always felt like I didn't really like it that much.
Yeah. Like, are you talking about like Picasso or like that
No,
kind of stuff? Or,
like
or even more contemporary stuff.
I like, I guess, realism. And there's like this Northern Renaissance era where it was like these artists were painting fabric that looked just like the real thing. And it was so vibrant, and it looked like a photograph.
Right.
Almost.
Yeah. Like Vermeer, one of those
Yeah,
guys.
like Vermeer.
Rembrandt.
And then there's like Jan van Eyck. Whereas somebody like, his name is escaping me, but the splatter.
Have you seen one in person?
No, and I'm sure if I did, I would be like, this is like, amazing.
It is, because it's like so, it's like just so detailed.
Yeah.
And I mean, and you paint, so
yeah,
like how paint behaves, and
right.
to get those different
I know he would have. They
and
would have had to taken forever.
There are artists today that like don't even get that training, or and they can just kind of go into like that totally abstract, contemporary, conceptual thing, like, oh, I just put this guitar up on the wall, and that's my art.
And it's art because I say it is.
Right. But like
I don't know if I believe in that.
Right. Well, I mean, there's a lot of emphasis on the concept, which I like, because I think that that's always there. But sometimes I think, for me at least, there's too much emphasis sometimes on the concept.
Yeah. Or like Dada.
Dada. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I buy it.
So you're not a Duchamp fan?
I don't know.
Like the toilet?
Yeah, I don't know if I do. I don't know. Maybe I would have to see it.
Duchamp, but
maybe I just haven't seen enough of it. I've only seen like the really famous ones that make everyone go, "Oh, I don't know if that's even art. What is that?" Right. So that's probably why.
Yeah, but if you look at the history of what Duchamp was doing, like he had other collages. Like, have you seen his earlier stuff with like the nude descending the staircase?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
I think
or like the brides. I can't remember the bridesmaid.
Maybe I didn't know that was him.
So like getting back to Jackson Pollock. So before he started doing the splatter paintings, he was doing like other stuff, and it was more like abstract, and but it was based on like Aztec kind of type of thing, like that vibe with it. But you can see the progress that gets him to the splatter paintings.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
And I think maybe like for you see it as gimmicky. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like that, but at the time it wasn't, because who would think that you could throw a painting like that up on a wall, and it would, I don't think they did really like it when it first came out.
Yeah, it was controversial, wasn't it?
Yeah. So, but now you see it as just like gimmicky because it's been around, everybody knows who Jackson Pollock is with splatter painting, and you're just putting paint down. But you got to take that chance to get to that point,
That's true.
and so to take that leap.
That's a good
to
point.
do it. Art is where I got my start,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't think I would be doing special effects now if I hadn't been doing art, So when we decided to leave Seattle and come down to Louisiana, my wife's family had a house that had been in her family for 150 years. And so it was just sitting there vacant. So we decided to move down there and we would take care of the house. No job prospects, but we didn't have to pay rent,
True.
which was nice. So we were watching the local news one night and they said that the movie industry is picking up in Louisiana. And around this time we moved in 2004 because it was November of 2004. And I remember that because Katrina was 2005.
Yeah.
I ended up calling the union hall, and they said I had to get 30 days on a show, but they would give me a list of movies that were being filmed in the area, and I could contact. I couldn't get anybody to call me back, but one guy did. This guy, Dave Blass, who was a production designer, and he had done, I'm trying to remember, it was not reality TV, but he would build sets
like
for like
competitive.
Yeah, kind of like
shows.
competitive shows.
I can't think of what that's called. Like American Idol, The Voice type of stuff.
Kind of stuff like that. So you have like a big stage. I even want to say that he had done some stuff for maybe the Oscars, building some of those like sets.
That's kind of like what I do
up
now.
On the stage.
Not for the Oscars, but similar.
You don't work for the Oscars?
Right, I know.
Like,
to clarify, not for the Oscars, but no, but it's like these mega large scale events.
Yes.
And they need way more stuff than you would even realize that they need designed and painted and constructed. So yeah, I get it.
Yeah. So he gave me a call. He was basically doing it as a favor for a friend of his. So it was this movie called La Boo that was a cross between Gremlins and Goonies. They're these kids, and they want to find this pirate's treasure. Maybe it was John Lafitte, but it was based off of John Lafitte was a pirate. So there's treasure out there, and they have a map. But they go into the woods, and there is this creature there that's called La Boo, and it looks like a little gremlin, but it's nice. Yeah, so they find these creatures out there while they're hunting, while they're looking for the treasure, and there is an oil tycoon that wants to come in and clear cut all the.
There's always some tycoon who wants to come in and clear cut.
Yeah. Oh, and of course he's got on like the 10-gallon hat, like the Texas. You would think they were from Texas, and wants to clear cut all the forest that the Labu live in, and
so there's a Fern
build
Gully
an oil
aspect.
refinery. So David Blass was designing this. He was the production designer for this small, low budget. I think they only had $1.5 million, maybe. So anyway, so he has an interview with me, and he says we can only pay $100 a day, and I was like, that's fine. I mean, I got to get into the business somehow. And I was like, do you guys need any tools? And he's like, yeah, maybe I could give you another $25 a day for a kit rental. But when we ended up like actually like working and stuff, I mean, we would work 18 hours a day. And so sometimes I was making like less than minimum wage. And with that show, it was almost like kind of a love for all of us to be doing it because, we knew they didn't have a big budget, but everybody really all got along. I'm trying to remember the director's name.
I don't know because I haven't seen it.
Dan Aberon.
But I'm going to.
Okay. Well, so the director, I mean, he was just a really nice guy, had a vision. He wrote it, directed it, and it actually won some awards.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for like best children's
cool
film feature or something. So might have been just in Canada, but I don't know.
Yeah, but still.
It won some awards.
Yeah.
So.
What was your position on it?
So I was just a construction.
Okay.
So I was just like a prop maker, I guess, at the time. So we started working on it and building these sets. so there was one set that we had to build that was once the kids find the treasure, it's like they're kind of like underground, even though it's Louisiana, you never be underground. But well, it's more. I mean, I guess it was kind of above, but in the swamps. But they enter into this room cave area where they find the ship.
Pretty big set, it sounds like, for the amount of money and the amount of. It's probably a small crew.
4 prop makers, and even then, like one of the prop makers was also the scenic guy. I don't know.
That's like how those go, those kind of
right.
low budget shows, which is kind of cool because sometimes if you're just getting into it, you get to touch a lot more than you would ever be able to on a bigger show.
We were set dressing, we were painting, we were, doing everything. So Katrina happened on a Monday, and on a Friday, we were out in Pirates Alley in New Orleans, which is like this long alley that goes into Jackson Square. And the scene is that there's the pirate and this crowd at a bar, and they discover that he's got money, and so they start chasing him for his gold. And he runs down Pirates Alley, and he jumps on a stake bed, a truck, and we put like a railing that looked like the pirate ship up on there.
Okay, I was like, wait, he jumps up on a stake bed.
So he jumps up on the stake bed, but I mean, the way they filmed it, you just see the railing.
Yeah.
And then he goes off like he's on his pirate ship, and he goes out into whatever, the Gulf of Mexico, and a hurricane comes.
In the story.
And picks up his ship and deposits it into the swamp somewhere, and that's what the kids are trying to find.
Oh.
So we were filming that on a Friday until 6 a.m. They wanted us to go back to the warehouse to strike the warehouse because they wanted to get it off rental. And I'd been in hurricanes because I grew up in Florida, so, and this one was a Category 5. They had said overnight that it was going to come in a Category 5. And most of the people are from Los Angeles, like the higher ups.
Yeah.
They're all from LA. And so we were kind of like, you guys should like kind of think about maybe trying to get out of town and, not stay here. Like, this isn't going to be something that you can just stay here.
Yeah.
They're like, well, just go to the warehouse and start taking stuff down and whatever. So we had our turnaround time. So we actually, after we got wrapped at 6 a.m., went to a bar and drank until like 11:30, and then we had to be at work at 1, and then woke up and started taking down the sets and stuff that we had on the warehouse stage. And they called it like 4 o'clock, and they're like, okay, you guys got to leave. Go, get off the clock. We're all leaving.
I know. That's how it always is.
And I'm just like, gosh, we
You're
told
like,
you
we
guys.
told you so.
Yeah, I could have been at home right now.
Yeah.
So on that Saturday, I lived an hour and 15 minutes away in a meet so that's how long it was from New Orleans. And I got an I-10 to go back home, and it's just stopped. And they have the other side of the interstate closed down, but they were going to do the contraflow, but they hadn't opened it yet. And then while I was sitting there, I started seeing cars going down the other side, and people started going over the median, and I had a pickup truck, so it was like a grassy median area. So I just like drove over to the other side, and I was like, I'm going. It took me like 6 to 7 hours to get home.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and then Katrina came in. There was one crew member, maybe 2 crew members that missed the flight, and so they were in the hotel.
Yeah, I was going to ask.
Katrina came in.
They left.
Yeah, like most of them left, but there was a couple crew members that didn't get on the flight.
Wow.
And so they got stuck in New Orleans and had to stay in the hotel. And it was like one of the hotels where the windows got blown out. And I think what was unique about Katrina, too, was you could see it coming for days. Like, I think, like,
because it sat
for
there
5 or 6 days, you know, it was out in the Atlantic, and then it crossed over Florida and came in.
And that's when it really
Gulf.
strengthened up.
Yeah. And it was like overnight. But they were saying that, it could potentially be a catastrophic hurricane. And just watching on TV and just like it was almost surreal. So when Katrina happened, and then I didn't know what was going to happen after that. And, with this movie, I didn't know if they were going to come back. I didn't know, we didn't even know if the movie industry was going to start up again, because, I mean, it seemed like that they were just so freaked out, by the cause of that. And for years and years, like, we wouldn't shoot during the summer.
So what happened
Okay.
after?
They did end up coming back. I can't even remember how long afterwards. When they called me, it might have been like 4 months. But they decided to come back and finish shooting.
Wow.
So, and when they came back, Dave Blass, he made me the assistant art director. The little Abu creature, they brought somebody in from Jim Henson Puppets.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And so this guy came in, and I'm probably getting all these facts screwed up or whatever. So he came in, and then he had to go back to LA at some point, and but he had to train somebody to do the animatronics. And so I wanted to do it, and the guy wanted me to do it. But then I asked Dave Blass, I said, if I leave, how screwed are you going to be? And he's like, I'd probably be okay, but I really would like you to stay. And I was like, okay, because he's treated me really well, and I really appreciate it. So anyway, so I stayed, and then so the guy that they had that went with the Jim Henson, he ended up, after that show ended, he went out to LA, and that's like his life, I guess, now still, but that's what I heard. Like, he just fell into that puppeteering world, animatronics and stuff, and makes a living on it. I'm like, well, that could be me out, and not that I want to be out in Los Angeles, but
Yeah. But also, I think those jobs are probably less frequent than what you do now, right?
I'm sure, but they're more specialized, so
that's true.
Make more money.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
But then CGI became really popular.
Yeah, that's true. It was before. I mean, that became less expensive.
Yeah,
so that everybody could do it.
I feel like it's only now that people have a desire for practical puppetry and animatronics.
Well, not like Five Nights at Freddy's, which I wasn't on, but they had animatronics.
Yeah, I was gonna say like Five Nights. There was something else recently in the past few years, I think, that also used animatronics and like live action puppetry. So yeah, I feel like that's coming back, which I like.
Yeah. I mean, we've done, like, when I did 22 Jump Street, they had a whole like puppeteering thing. He's riding around. We had to modify a kid's pink car, like a Corvette or something. And so the motor wasn't powerful enough for a human being, especially the size of Channing Tatum, And so we had to modify it and put a different motor in there.
Cool.
And so he would sit, and his legs were all up like this. And,
in like a Power Wheels Corvette.
Yeah, and he'd drive around the set, and the puppeteers were doing their thing. They wanted it to go around the corner and go up on two wheels.
Oh my God.
And then come back down. And so we put like a little air actuator inside of it, so that it would have a foot that would go down, so the foot would raise up the car like this. So that was like on a button that the driver would push when they were doing it, and go around the corner. And
a stunt driver.
Yeah, it would have to be a stunt driver. I would hope so. When they came back, and then I was the assistant art director, after they came back with LeBou. And then, so next door, they were filming Big Mama's House 2 or 3 or whatever. So I went over there, and I talked with, I found the foreman there, and I said, hey, look, I'm looking for a job. I just did this, and I'm trying to get in the union. And he's like, yeah, let me get your phone number. So he ended up calling, I don't know, like maybe 2 or 3 weeks after that ended. And then I got on The Curious Case of Benjamin Buttons in the construction department. And so I did construction in the movies for 3 years, 4 years.
Because Benjamin Button was like, what, 2006?
2006. And so I did construction, and I just, I like certain parts of it, but I kind of ended up getting bored with it. You end up doing some cool things, but a lot of times you're building walls to make a box that you're putting inside another box, is how I felt. And I still have part of the set at my house.
Really? What is it?
So we had to build a train station, and so it was in this gymnasium, and the way we did it was like 2 sides of the train station, so the doors that people would come in and out. In between was marble flooring, And then on this side and this side was green screen to make it look, big. But it could get the people walking in through the lobby or whatever. So we had built the two sides. It was insane because the scenic artists, I can't remember how many there were. It took them like 3 months to marble every single piece of MDF and masonite. So the floor was all like masonite.
Because they do it by hand.
Yeah, they do it all by hand.
Yeah.
So there was like two sides, and there was 3 doors, and above each door was like the street that it would go out onto. And so they were just going to throw it in the dumpster. And so I was like, hey, can I have one of those? So I got the one that says Canal Street.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so I've got it hanging at my house. They had a it wasn't a scenic artist, but it was like a sign painter come in and make the signs, because they were all, the Canal Street was all handwritten, hand painted. And so they had lights back behind it so that part would glow. It was like the Canal Street was written in gold, but you could kind of see through once you had a light back there, and it would kind of glow with it. So they had somebody come in and paint it, and I'm just like, gosh, you guys are just gonna throw this out.
Yeah.
But they do.
So what did you end up doing after Benjamin Button?
We did Blackwater Transit that didn't come out because, as far as I understand it, the director started making his own movie. It had Lawrence Fishburne in it, and it was about Katrina. We had to build there was a house in the Ninth Ward that they wanted to film in, and basically this house, so it was like a 2-story, you had like a bottom floor and then a top, and 3 sides of the bottom floor had gotten washed out after Katrina. So the second story was like this at an angle, and they wanted to film in it, and so they got this engineer to come in and like, is this structurally sound? He's like, fuck no, that's not structurally sound, you morons. I don't know. I probably made that up, but they would have.
Of course,
they had some, because they wanted to film in it, so they would have had to have an engineer come in and assess it. So anyway, so they're like, okay, well, we're gonna build a replica of this, and so the way we built it was we built up the back wall, and then we built the flooring for the second floor that was sloped down, and then we built the walls going up like this, and then the roof, and there was like constant tour buses going through.
That's right, because
through the
people
Ninth
wanted
Ward.
to see the Ninth Ward at that time after Katrina, which is like.
And they would get out. They would come and they would get out, and they'd look at it, and they're like, "Why are you guys building it? What are you gonna? You guys gonna like raise the house up? Like, why are you building it on an angle?" And we're like, "It's for a movie. In the movie, that house gets blown up, and so, yeah, there's like a great video online of that house going up.
I have to look it up.
You should, yeah.
Yeah.
And then I just kind of kept going. So I went with them for a few years, and then did Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, and I stayed with that company for a little while, and then like there was like a lull in between shows, and I got on with somebody else. But I really like, I would just be happy being in the shop, and
really?
just, yeah. If I didn't have to go to set.
This is stuff.
Yeah, so this is what I like. I like being given a problem, like this is what they want to see. Let's figure out how to do it. I like working with you in the shop, experimenting, because you always have to test and figure out how you're going to do stuff. And, sometimes things don't work out and you got to go a different route. Then you finalize your thing that you have, your special effect. And then I like when you take that to set, you go with it because you know how it all operates. And not everybody does this. Sometimes they'll just send the thing to set, and then
someone else,
they don't know how to operate it, and they don't know all the little intricacies of it, of all the little steps that you went through to figure out how to get it to work.
Right, or troubleshooting.
Yeah, to troubleshoot it, and so I like, I think it's good to send the person that built it. Like, kind of getting back to the art thing, like, I mean, if you look at my artwork is not paintings on a wall, so obviously that's not, like, where my interests lie.
Yeah.
It's more mechanical things. So
no, it makes total sense that you do special effects because of your background and, like, the movement of the art that you are interested in, and then the metal fabrication.
Definitely knowing how to weld has helped me get into special effects. I mean, and that's kind of like what I tell, when people, how do I get into special effects? And I'm like, well, do you know how to weld? Like, you don't always need to be welding to do special effects, but because you're doing things that are under higher pressures, things have to get built with steel. And so there's a saying in special effects that if it's not heavy, it's not special effects. But people get confused a lot about what special effects actually is. So they confuse it with visual effects, which is the computer animation or the computer CGI. A lot of times when I tell somebody I do special effects, they're like, oh, that's cool. You do stuff on the screen. And I'm like,
they think
no,
of CGI right away.
Yeah. I'm like, I actually really blow the thing up.
Yeah. Working in special effects, and just, I guess, generally being in the industry, are the little things that you don't even realize is an effect at all, is kind of movie magic. And you guys are such a huge part of the movie magic. What's so cool is that every scene is different. Like, if you do have to do something that's, let's say, like, you did the key, that was you doing, like, I want to say it was in Sulphur Springs.
Okay.
Doing a key being pulled under the door or something.
Yeah.
And then they played it in reverse. You guys did that differently than someone else would have done it. So it is an art, I think.
Well, and with that, I mean, it was like what the producer wanted to see, you know, like to try to give them that and figure out a way to do it, you know. And so when those conversations happen, it's hard to tell who really comes up with, you know, like, oh, you could just shoot it in reverse. We'll throw the key out, the water, because he wanted the water to get sucked into the door. I'm trying to remember, the key got sucked into the door and then the water got sucked in. So we had the key come out first and then the water come out behind it. Right, so that's what it was. So
I'm trying to think of it in my head. But
he picks up his hat, so the actor has to walk in backwards, pick up his hat, and walk away, and then that reveals the key that's there, and then the water gets sucked into the door, and then the key gets sucked underneath the door. So we had to throw the key out first, have the water pool come out, and then the actor had to walk in backwards, lay the hat down, and walk out backwards. So that when you put it in reverse footage, it would look like he was walking in, grabbing his hat, walking out.
Do you have any scenes or gags that in your head right away you're like, this is probably one of the coolest things I've ever done?
I don't know. I mean, still one that, like the very first movie I worked on, Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, a scene where, like, Abraham Lincoln chops a tree down. We had built a base that this real tree would sit on. So it's a tree without a canopy, so just the trunk. But it was a real tree, and then we had high pressure air underneath of it with a ram that would push the tree off and make it fall down. It was dangerous.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, no one can be around, and setting it up, you need a crane to set it up, and it had to be perfectly balanced. So we had to tweak it every time to get it to just sit on there.
Because it had to be on the base. The actual tree trunk had to be sitting on a base, so it's being hung by a
so the
crane.
base would look like a tree. It would sit on there, and we would put bark around, kind of screw it on or whatever.
So you can't see the seam.
So you can't see the seam, and it just looked like the tree. And then you could send air down and had wood chips and stuff in there that would blow out. So when you would hit the trigger, the tree would come up and come down, but you have all this debris. So he's like,
but could he swing at it? He could hit it?
So he would swing at it, but he was like back from the tree, like maybe 10 feet or so.
Oh, wow.
But on camera, it looks like he really swung through it. He might not have been that far away. Yeah, so it was like a forced perspective kind of thing. But it was one of those that, because it was dangerous, you had this 1,000-pound tree trunk that could fall over at any point. So it gets put onto the rig with a crane, and at some point you have to detach it from the crane. So at that point, it could fall any direction.
Right,
I mean, you have safety things, you know, but that was like the safety, the last minute. And obviously you wouldn't do that until camera's rolling, everybody's out of the way, and then you can let the thing go, and it's just there, you know. But even doing tests, I mean, we figured out we had to pull it with a cable, because sometimes when you would do it, it would go the same direction, but sometimes it'd be off a little bit from where. And so if they were going to put a camera in any of those places, you want to know where it's going. So we had a tag line on it. They could pull it
in the direction you needed it to go.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was a good one. I mean,
we both worked on Reacher and Logan, right?
Yeah.
I haven't even seen Logan yet.
You haven't seen Logan?
I know.
Oh my gosh, what is wrong with you? It's actually, I think that you would like it. My wife liked it, and she's not big into Marvel movies,
Yeah.
you know, so.
The last 2 weeks, you know, everyone went to New Mexico. My dad passed away.
Oh.
And then because I read the script, so I knew what the storyline was, and I generally knew that it's kind of like a father-daughter-esque story, right? So it was just,
Yeah.
I know it's a good movie, but
It's a good movie.
that's why I haven't seen it.
Like with that, I mean, there weren't really a whole lot of like really crazy effects that we had to do on that. You know, it wasn't like,
It was
there
like
little things
bullet.
here and there.
I think there was like some bullet holes in the car.
Well, that was a big, yeah. And I wasn't involved with that really until going out to New Mexico and setting it up. Like, but that was like the limousine scene where you know, goes to the fence and the fence stops the car from moving.
Yeah.
You know, so there was like guys that were working on that, which really was impressive, going at 30 miles an hour and have it come to a dead stop like that.
Yeah, I think I also remember some driving, just regular old like driving scenes that maybe we did on the soundstage for some reason, and it was in the limo, and they had me sit in the back of the limo because they wanted to see like if it looked realistic, maybe that we were driving. So they were like, they would like you guys being the
because we had
effects
the
techs would
limo.
like bounce the car, or have it on some sort of a little like gimbal.
It was
or
on like a
something.
motion. I wouldn't call it a motion base. It was like airbags.
Yeah.
So it was on airbags, so you could sit there and rock the car and make it look like it was moving. And then there was the thing where the car like actually spins out. Where the car actually spins out with Patrick Stewart in there. And so they wanted to do that on stage, obviously, and not film it, you know, going down the road and really doing it. You know, so we had the hydraulic system set up to be able to pull the car. Rip and Molly working on all those bullet holes for a month.
Yeah.
Like they had to make it, I mean, hundreds of them or 1,000. The whole problem was the limo was a custom limo. They had
I only remember one.
So it was the one limo that was custom made that had to have 4 different looks to it.
Oh,
so there was, and the way that they were going to have to film it, they couldn't film it in sequence. So in the end, the limo is totally filled with bullet holes all over it.
Yeah.
But it's a custom limo, and so you can't just like get an extra door and put a bunch of holes in it to, you know. But they did have some extra parts that they got, I guess, from the prototype. They'd made a prototype, if I remember correctly. And so they were like the doors that matched that we could use and have some things pre-done. But
I kind of remember that, yeah.
Yeah. And so instead of putting all those, because it would be a nightmare for visual effects to have to put all those in, I would assume, and with the car driving and changing and all that. So it was easier to do it practically, and it was basically like 2 people that worked on making all those bullet holes and the glass things that were silicone, I believe, and they could just stick it on the window and it looked like there was a bullet hole in the window. So they had a guy that wired up that whole car, like basically made a loom, which is a bunch of wires, because we were going to do a whole bunch of squibs on it, you know, and like really do that at some point. And we had made, you know, done the bullet holes, made our finishes on the doors and all that. So there were other doors that we could get that we could put on, but for the actual like driving vehicle, you know, and the way they were shooting it, we couldn't do those first and then have all the bullet holes that we made with the squibs. And then it's just crazy because you work so much on that. And then on the day, I think that we only did like the one real shotgun hit, maybe 1 or 2 hits on the car. And there was like 50 or 60 hits on that whole car, and we only used 3 of them.
Wow.
Well, the shotgun hit was a combination of like 5 or 6 squibs together to get, you know, make it look like that. But then the other 2, so...
Wow.
And that's another thing that always amazes me in the movie business is you work on something for so long, and then sometimes they're just like, obviously there's the bigger budget movies, but they're just like, no, we're not going to do that. We don't need that.
I know.
Like, I just worked on that for like a month.
Yeah. Right. Or they cut it.
Or they cut it. Yeah, that happens a lot.
Yeah. We just watched Imaginary. That was fun to watch because it was so recent. You know the little blue ball that has the sad face on it? It's downstairs.
Oh.
But like, we went to the theater to see that.
What'd you think of it?
I mean, it was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was fun to work on, and I haven't seen it yet. I saw the cut before we did the reshoots.
I think it was fun also knowing that you guys did the effects and they were being pointed out to me as I was watching it by Mike. So he'd be like, see that? We did that. Yeah. See the bear under the bed? See how he goes like that? I did that.
I feel like if I would sit there the whole movie and be like, oh, we did this, it ruins the movie for people.
It would if it was
when you're watching it.
If it was a movie that I was legitimately like, I want to watch this story, like even so though, I love the behind the scenes about movies. I mean, like that's the whole reason why I got into the industry. So I don't mind because effects can be like sound department. The viewer doesn't even think about it as they're watching the film. I think it's cool to notice the work that's been put in or like the artistry that's been put into an effect.
I think part of it too, like, I mean, obviously depending on what it is, like the explanation for it is like 30 seconds and the thing's over in 3 seconds. You know? Then it's just like already gone, you know, when you're watching it with somebody and you're like, you had to do this and this, and it was just like, pop. You know, done.
Well, we should probably wrap it up. Okay. I really do appreciate you coming out and talking to me.
Feel privileged you would want to talk to me.
Yeah, of course.
So, cool.
Talk to you later.
All right, bye.